Hello, my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. So we used to do collective houseplant hauls on my channel like pretty frequently. I've kind of moved away from doing that, not for any particular reason other than that like I'm not really buying plants quite as often, so there's not as much to show. But something that I can do that's really fun is do like houseplant updates and follow-up videos to those collective plant hauls. So there's a video that came out a little over a year ago. I think it was back December 2021, I want to say, or maybe it was, I don't know, something around that realm, or January 2022. Besides the point, it was like a little over a year ago. And there's a lot of plants from that video that I think it'd be fun to kind of feature and see like where they're at now compared to where they were at when I purchased them. So with that, yeah, I'll just share clips of that video. So yeah, let's see what the first plant was. So this first plant is the Philodendron Spa Fuzzy Petiole. And these leaves are absolutely gorgeous. This came up on Facebook Marketplace. It was like a local sale and I just hopped on it because honestly, I'm a huge fan of any plants that have unique petioles, be it, you know, they're fuzzy or bumpy or have a unique color. Now, admittedly, I am a little bit concerned. In the last few weeks that I've had this guy, I feel like he's been declining. So of course there's always the risk of inheriting a plant that already has root rot, because root rot can take many days or even like a week or so to really set in. It had one older leaf that yellowed off and it looked strange to me in the way that it yellowed off, so that just made me worried. And this leaf was already kind of like, the new leaf already had been kind of decapitated by, you know, maybe traveling, mechanical damage, stuff like that. But I don't know, I could be crazy or paranoid, but I feel like it's just a lot more limp than it used to be. So I'll keep you guys updated. I really don't want this guy to die. Oh, this is actually like the first video that I filmed with my fancy camera, so that's kind of fun. Okay, yeah. So this plant, I really liked this plant. This plant has been through it. So I did kind of allude like, hey, this plant has been kind of declining. It totally had root rot, like bad, when I bought it. Like I bought it literally within days. The plant started to decline and I did end up taking it out of the pot and it was rotting. It had to have been rotting before I got it because there's no way. A little not great, but I had to completely like reroot this thing from scratch. I'm pretty sure I rooted it just in water. Like I had to like remove all the rotten roots. I rooted it in water and then eventually I potted it up again and it was fine, but it never really fully bounced back. I feel like at this point it's kind of better, but here, let me show you. So, okay, this is gonna be deceptive. This is not the original plant. This part of the plant right here is the original plant. So if you can see, there's like multiple plants in this pot. So the one on this side right here is the original plant. I had to reroot it and everything. I potted it up on its own, but it was really sad for a long time and had a hard time kind of reestablishing. So this is like that original leaf that was, you know, that original big leaf. It's still hanging on. It had a couple of leaves after this that like would come out and then they would die or they would like shrivel up and they came out really deformed. So like this one right here was kind of deformed, you can see. So for a while I thought that it had a pest or something, but honestly I think that the roots were just still trying to recover and figure themselves out. So now I feel like this plant is finally breathing. It's finally hitting its stride. With this leaf is quite pretty and it's putting out like it has another new leaf that's going to come in pretty soon, I think. So, you know, this plant is finally kind of figuring itself out after getting root rot. Thankfully I was able to rescue it, but yeah, it wasn't great. This portion of the plant was a larger plant that I found at my local garden center and I thought, you know what, this plant's looking kind of sad, so I wanted to like add on to it. I will say this plant is very crazy. Its leaves do get caught quite a bit. I could I could definitely like tend to this plant a lot more. I mean, look right here. This is such a scraggly mess. Some portions of it look really beautiful, but other portions of it are just kind of like all over the place. So on the whole, I mean, it's doing fine, but I feel like this plant definitely needs more attention. I need to either put it on a pole or more support or something. I have like these little bamboo stakes, or not even bamboo. I think that they're just like wooden stakes that are kind of holding it a little bit more stable than it would be otherwise. But for the most part, I mean, like, yeah, it's growing. It has like a lot of fun new growth happening. But overall, it just feels very crazy to me, and I want to give it a little bit more structure. And I mean, I have so many of these like pieces that I need to peel off, which I don't know what is wrong with me. I haven't been peeling these things off, but yeah, I mean, it's satisfying. I should be doing it more often. I'll figure it out eventually. But this is a plant that, I mean, it's alive. It's doing fine. I'm really relieved. It was quite the journey trying to handle this plant, you know, that had root rot, and I had to kind of reroot it, refigure itself out for a while there. But now it's just a matter of, okay, this is a plant that's on my list of plants to pamper and eventually repot or give it a pull, or I don't know, do something, because it's kind of nuts. I kind of like it, but there are pieces of it that definitely look really scraggly and need to be pruned or something. The next plant that I got is this Tradescantia chrysophylla, I believe, or Tradescantia baby bunny bellies, which it is aptly named. When I first saw it, I wasn't incredibly attracted to it because it did just look like a normal Tradescantia, but like green. So, you know, I was like, oh, whatever. But then I saw the name from afar. So I approached it and I stroked it. And oh my word, I don't know if you can really see how fuzzy it is, but this has to be one of the softest plants I have ever felt in my entire life. Now, I do have kind of mixed feelings in a love-hate relationship with Tradescantia because, you know, when you get them, they are this full and beautiful, but once they leave the greenhouse settings, it is a little bit challenging to keep them looking that full and beautiful, at least in my experience. And maybe I'm just not giving them the right care. A lot of people say that they're super easy, but a lot of other people seem to struggle with them, you know, losing leaves and just getting kind of more bald over time, which is fine. And they do tend to grow back, I've noticed, but it's either their growth pattern or they're kind of finicky when it comes to like inconsistent watering or making sure you get good lighting for them. So I'm going to try my utmost to maintain this full bushy appearance. All right, the next plant was the Tradescantia chrysophylla, or the baby bunny bellies. And I mean, she has grown a lot. Holy moly, I didn't even really realize that. Let me show you. Like, wow, hello? Look at her. Okay, she's kind of gone off apparently. I did think that I would like this plant a lot more than I actually do. This plant, I believe, was included on my list of plants that I'd like kind of fallen out of love with, and like she didn't really meet my expectations. I do still, I mean, I enjoy that her leaves are fuzzy, and I think the coloration is fun. Like, it's a good plant. It just goes kind of crazy, and the top of it too, like a lot of pieces have like shriveled or browned off, gotten really crispy. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's not super full on top, and vines tend to just kind of shrivel up and die off. So even though I guess she is kind of thriving technically, but I feel like I forget to water her sometimes, and so she gets all crispy, and I don't know, she's just kind of a tangled mess. I guess she's my Rapunzel plant. I feel like I need to appreciate this plant more than I do. She's definitely fairly unique, but I think part of it is that I've realized that I just don't really love Tradescantia all that much. It's just not my favorite genus. We don't really get along. She's kind of tangled and leggy, but she grew a lot. So I am kind of impressed because I've definitely neglected this plant like pretty hardcore. So props to her for hanging in there. And I tend to try to avoid buying plants that I already own, but sometimes you just find a single specimen of a plant and you just cannot resist. And that was the case with this plant. Now I have featured it already on my channel, but since I got it this month, I figured I would show it again, and it's this gorgeous Philodendron Brazil. Excuse me. So this is a very mature looking Philodendron Brazil. It's got very big, beautiful leaves. It's trailing already. The variegation is stunning. It's got peachy stems and petioles, which I absolutely love. Holy moly, you guys. I am shook. I don't care if that's old terminology for nowadays, but like, so here's the Philodendron Brazil, and let me stand. Hello? Who is she? Ah! This plant has grown so much. That's awesome. Okay. Wow. I do not regret buying this plant, even though it was a duplicate plant, because this plant has some fire genetics. My other Philodendron Brazil that I was referring to, it's grown a decent amount, but like nowhere near this. And this plant has not even been in like the greatest lighting either. Like it's very, honestly, medium to low light. It gets some direct light for like, maybe an hour a day, if that, just from a west facing window that's across the room. Like there will be like a ray of light that hits it. But other than that, like it's in very low light conditions. And yet she's like, do you see this? This is one of my favorite plants, I think. Just, it gives jungle. It gives the jungle vibes so generously. And I can't help but smile when I see this plant. Just look at how gorgeous. And it never stops growing, ever. I will say the sun stress, like that reddish hue that I was talking about, it did end up losing that over time just because like it's not nearly as sun stressed as it was before. And you know, it's very long, but obviously the leaves aren't quite as large as they are up top, which, I mean, come on, that's to be expected. But all things considered, this plant is still really beautiful and lush. And I mean, there are some hints of like this newest leaf right here has a little bit of that orange tint that I was really liking, like that peachy tint. My gosh, I have nothing else to say other than, wow, this plant's like one of my absolute favorites, and it has thrived even with neglect, even with pretty low light. I mean, I want to be careful about saying like, oh, you can put your plants in low light and they'll live. I mean, at least this plant, in my experience, I have not been very generous with this plant, but this plant has been generous with me and very kind to me. I honestly forgot like how small that plant was. But looking at that from a year ago, like this, holy moly, it's so much bigger now. That's amazing. This next plant I'm quite excited about, and it is this Alocasia Black Velvet. Ooh, she is a beauty. Now, this is actually the first Alocasia that I have ever owned. So I will say, I think I'm generally not a huge fan of Alocasia. I've never been super attracted to them. And on top of the fact that they tend to be like spider mite and maybe even thrips magnets, I've always been a little bit hesitant to get into them. But of all the Alocasia out there, I think that I'm most attracted to the Alocasia Black Velvet because, wow, look at these leaves. Excuse me, they're beautiful. And the backs of the leaves are also beautiful. All right, here she is, my Alocasia Black Velvet. Is she thirsty again already? Oh my gosh, how are you thirsty again already? I just watered you like a few days ago. Are you gonna need a repot? Like, she's literally dry. And yeah, I was wondering, I was like, why are you all wrinkly, like folding in? Oh my gosh, okay, I guess I need to water her again. But like, I usually only water her like every week and a half or so, but it's been like maybe 4 days and she's already dried out. That's unusual. So, okay, well, don't mind that. I promise I keep up with her watering. But okay, this plant has changed shape so much. Like, do you see like how different it is? My gosh. Okay, well, I am happy to report that this plant has actually never gotten spider mites, which is a shock to me because I heard that alocasia are super prone to spider mites. But yeah, I've inspected her really carefully. She's never gotten spider mites. As you can see, she has grown substantially. I feel like she has like about the same number of leaves, but she's just kind of stretched out, gone through, you know, she's dropped leaves and grown bigger leaves and etc. So like, I mean, she's just a very different plant now, but I've really enjoyed growing this alocasia, and it's made me warm up to alocasia a bit more. I know, I think I mentioned in there that I'm like not the biggest alocasia fan for the most part, but now that I've been growing this one for a while, I've actually really been wanting to get into some other alocasia. I currently have an alocasia cuprea, but that's the only other alocasia that I own. But maybe one of these days I will pick up just another alocasia or two just to kind of break in there a little bit more, because honestly I found a lot of success with this plant. The only downside, at some point she got some sort of a bacterial or fungal issue or something, because you can see these leaves are not as happy. I think I mentioned that in my previous video because she was actually a favorite for the month of February. Yeah, I mean, there are some funny things with her care, and we did go through a period of like not so greatness where when I was pregnant with my son last year, I definitely neglected this plant like hardcore. She was not getting the light that she needed. She was not getting the water that she needed. And so she declined like a ton. But I popped her into like this humidity prop box situation, and she like bounced right back after like, I don't know, a few weeks. And then she just kind of kept growing in there for like, I don't know, 4 months or something like that. And then I eventually took her out of that situation. But putting her in that high humidity, high light situation, because it was in a south facing window, really helped her out, I think. Helped her to kind of bounce back from the brink of death. So I'm really glad I was able to save this plant. But more recently, she's just been over here in this corner, which is right next to a west facing window, and I have a south facing window in front of me. So this room in general does tend to get quite a bit of light when it's a sunny day, and I try to keep her soil moist, so I'll have to water her again. Girl, you are thirsty today. I guess it might be because she just put out this new leaf, and then there's another new leaf coming up soon, so I do feel like she tends to be thirstier when she's putting out new leaves because it takes a lot of energy. And I have noticed some corms in here before, but I have not done anything with them. But even just like right here, oh, did I break it? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do something with this. I'm pretty sure this is a corm, but there's another corm right here too. Oh gosh, they both just popped up. Well, I've never actually done anything with the corms, so I guess I'm gonna just have to Google how to handle that. I guess I'll address that right after I'm done with this, but anyways, well, yeah, she's generally happy. I just need to water her like ASAP, apparently. I was definitely pretty intimidated initially, but yeah, she's happy. And that's all I can really ask, you know? Okay, my camera battery is about to die, so I'm going to try to go through this next and last plant very, very quickly. It's the Tenanthe Burley Marksii. I think the fishbone prayer plant is another common name for it, but wow, she's a stunner. I absolutely love her. My mother-in-law got her for me for Christmas, and this completes, in a sense, my prayer plant collection. I have several of the other kinds like Calathea ergopertia and Maranta and Stramanthe, but I had yet to own any Tenanthes, and I've heard that they're actually probably the least fussy of all prayer plants. So, I mean, sign me up. I love prayer plants a lot, and the less fussy they are, the better. I mean, I'm definitely kind of a helicopter parent when it comes to my plants, so I kind of enjoy the fact that they need so much care and love and attention, because I don't know, I find it very fun to be all up in my plants business. But since I'm owning a lot more plants lately, I appreciate a plant that needs a little bit less and is still a prayer plant, because I love the up and down motion of prayer plants. I love how beautiful they are. I love their different colored, their darker colored backs to the leaves. I love their striking markings and the feel. Just, they make me very, very happy. So I'm excited to own this Tenanthe, and I hope that I can get some more Tenanthe in the future. Definitely a big big fan of this kind of plant. Okay, the last plant, my Timanthe Burley Marksii, is actually right over here. She's basking in the sunlight right now, but wow, as you can tell, if you could tell, she has grown quite a bit, and I did repot her kind of recently, like in the last few months here. There's definitely some fungus gnats in here, which is not ideal. Get out of here, buddies. This plant has been the easiest plant that I've like owned from the Mary T.C. family, I think. She's been totally fine with all of my neglect, because girl, she's gone through neglect. She's gone through underwatering. I neglected repotting her for months and months and months, especially, you know, I kind of referred to it like last year. I was pregnant with my son, had really bad morning sickness and exhaustion, fatigue, etc. I couldn't really care for my plants. Like I basically had to do the bare minimum to keep them alive, and thank God I didn't really lose a whole lot of plants in my collection. But yeah, even through all of that, this plant kept on putting out new leaves. I don't think she's really putting out new leaves at the moment, because I think that her root system, oh, here's one actually. There's no way that you'll be able to see that, but I just found a new leaf. So at least she's still growing. She's definitely gotten kind of funkier and leggier, like she's not quite as compact. And she did lose a lot of leaves over time that I had to remove just from underwatering, but she always put out new leaves to replace them. And all in all, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of crisping, if anything, which is kind of miraculous, to be honest. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at her. I'm not really noticing a whole lot of crisping at all, which the Mary TCA family is pretty notorious for crisping. Like there's a little bit like on this leaf, but it's really not, it's barely noticeable at all. So, I mean, I've just been really impressed with how carefree this plant has been. I forget about her often. I don't really do anything special. She does get like pretty nice light right here from this west facing window. As you can see, there's just like rays of light that come down here, but yeah, I water her when I remember to, and she is pretty vocal too. Like if she's really dry, she will droop, and it's like, oh shoot, I gotta water you. And of course I try to water her before that point so she doesn't get too stressed out. But yeah, I mean, she's been a trooper through everything, and I'm really grateful for this plant. I'm grateful that she's doing well. Well, I think that is actually all of the plants in the video. And okay, I'm actually really surprised there were no plant deaths in that one. I cannot say the same for all of them, because one of these days we're gonna come across one where there's a horrific plant death, and yeah, I was not able to keep all of them alive. But with this one, it was all happy. It was all happy stories for the most part. I mean, there are some plants I've kind of fallen out of love with a little bit, like the fuzzy petiole and the Tradescantia chrysophylla, I think are not as much in my favor at the moment, but for the most part, they were all happy stories. So I don't know if you can hear that, but my toddler just got home from the park. She entered the house and just yelled, "Mama!" So I guess that's my cue to leave, but at least I got through all the plants before that happened. So if you want to, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Any of those things are super duper helpful for my channel. So yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.